Hey guys, it's the Tominator, and now it's time for the main event, the Mr. Olympia 2022 Men's Open Division, and the last man standing was Samson Dauda. Just kidding. So they had him first in the second callout and then brought him up to this one, which was a six-man group featuring Hadi Choopan, Derek Lunsford, Brandon Curry, Big Ramy, and Nick Walker. So I'll give it a second and then put the names under them once they get settled. For the 4 or 5 of you who don't really follow bodybuilding and don't already know who's who. Okay, so this was a large top call-out, and we're seeing a couple fresh faces up there in Derek and Samson. So hats off to them in their Olympia Open Class debuts. These guys brought it. In this front relaxed, who jumps out to me is Nick Walker on the right. Very defined through the core and lower body, and honestly looking more massive upstairs than Big Ramy right now. Lunsford has a tremendous taper, and Samson looks incredibly imposing and aesthetic with all that size and height. In the front double by, Nick is putting on a gun show for the ages, but I don't really like him here other than that. Looks kinda blocky. Ramy looks solid as hell with some great arms of his own, and of course the thighs go without saying at this point. That's basically been his calling card for years. I like the slight vacuum he's rocking too. Derek has an amazing outline with the best V-taper of the bunch, but he's looking a little light downstairs compared to most of these guys. Just a tad. Still massive quads, but a lot of that size is actually coming from the adductors as opposed to the outer sweep, which isn't ideal. He's also too smooth through the arms, but still, gotta appreciate that shape and structure. Hadi is like a compact tank there beside him, and Samson is once again the most aesthetic, along with Lunsford. Brandon Curry, and I hate to say this as a longtime fan, but he missed the mark a bit. The commentators I felt were being overly generous to him, saying he's improved. He improved size-wise maybe by coming in super full, but from a conditioning standpoint, he's definitely worse than I've seen him in years. The skin looks so thick that the separation is almost invisible. I do like the fullness through the arms and lats, but that's about the only nice thing to be said here. For my money, you could give this one to Ramy. He's arguably the most balanced. Maybe not proportionately with those overbearing quads, but I mean in terms of showing good detail in both the upper and lower body. Hadi is similar, just like a smaller version. Okay, so they move Hadi towards the middle, which I think is fair. And they also bump Lunsford over a spot, which I was grateful to see as that's a very compelling comparison. Here you have 2 former 212 superstars going head-to-head for the first time on the Olympia stage. Now, standing next to Hadi in itself is a real litmus test for the young man, and for the most part, Derek was holding his own. Now they hit the front double again, and Hadi looks even better somehow. Might be the slight change in angle or lighting, might just be that he was getting stronger as he went, but I have him arguably winning the pose now. The front lat spread is a close call between Hadi and Lunsford. I think Derek is a little better through the lats, arms, and shoulders, but Hadi's got him beat downstairs and through the chest. Brandon and Samson both look like they're holding a film of water, and Nick looks a little bloated. Do you guys notice how he never seems to post progress pics of the lat spreads? It's always side shots and double biceps and most musculars. This is why. They remain his weak link because his V-taper is poor. Ramy looks surprisingly mediocre in this one, given his width. Other than the overpronounced delts and quads, there's really nothing special here. Could be due to the camera angle, which for some reason is off-center and throwing off our perception a bit. But yeah, from this vantage point, I'm going with Hadi again. The side chest is where things begin to shake up a bit. Hadi takes a back seat now because he looks thin and small, especially standing next to Brandon, who's suddenly beefy and big as a house. Lack of conditioning or not, this is a damn good shot for him. Samson also looks large and complete, but I'd like to see a bit more sharpness, both downstairs and through that delt arm tie-in. Derek looks sharp and is overtaking Hadi now. Could use a bit more sweep through the hamstrings, but detail-wise, he's second only to Big Ramy in the side leg. Speaking of Ramy, this has been his money shot for the past 2 years. His legs look absolutely incredible from the side. Sort of like Derek's, but like 1.5 times the size. Unfortunately, due to the aforementioned camera angle, we're not seeing it properly, and he looks over-rotated. So he's not being given a fair shake, and it's difficult to assess. If he was turning more like Brandon Curry, I suspect he could be winning, but that's indeterminate right now. Nick also is really strong here, crazy thick. Comparable to Curry, but maybe slightly worse up top, yet slightly better downstairs. Really very balanced shot for him. I might even give him the nod in this one, but it's debatable between him and Curry since Brandon has the better chest. Yeah, despite the off angle, one thing's for sure, Ramy is looking a bit thin through the arms right now, so I don't think you can give it to him this year. And the back double biceps utterly exposes the two-time champ. As many people rightfully noted last year, it's like the entire lower half of his back is missing. I noticed when watching him pose that he seemed to be retracting the scapula, creating the illusion of greater thickness perhaps, but at the cost of some width and simultaneously highlighting that lack of lower back development. So that was a really dumb strategic move. I don't know who his posing coach is, whether that's Dennis James or Chad Nichols or someone else, but whoever it is, they effed up bad with that advice. Because he's arguably last right now. Brandon looks great up top, but look at Hadi right next to him, totally dusting Curry in one of his best poses. This was a real eye-opener for me, just how much Hadi Choopan improved from the back this year. I feel like overall, yes, he sacrificed some of his trademark razor-sharp conditioning that we've grown accustomed to, but in the end it was a smart trade-off because he gained some size and fullness and is still one of the most conditioned guys in the lineup. So right here, this is another two-horse race between Lunsford and Hadi. On the one hand, amazingly, Lunsford actually has the best back in the open class here. Incredible width, thickness, and detail, all rolled into one. This back could stand among the all-time greats like Phil and Kai. I'm not even exaggerating. Really good shoulders as well, although the arms are getting a little overshadowed. Hadi edges him out downstairs, though, with thicker legs and a more defined trailing hamstring. So, I don't know, take your pick, guys. I would say, let's go with Derek, since we've been pretty generous to Hadi thus far. Nick Walker is also in the discussion, but I have him third after these two because he doesn't look as sharp as them. And as for the rear lat spread, I'll tell you what, this is Hadi, hands down. I hate to sound like a broken record or a biased fanboy here, giving him so many poses, but hey, I just call it like how I see it. And right now, in this pose, he is dominating. This is world-class thickness, width, and V-taper on display. Lunsford is damn close, though, with more shredded glutes, but a slightly less impressive back right now. Samson shockingly overtakes Curry here, who was formerly very strong in this one, but not so much this time around. Big Ramy is bouncing back a little, but still only good enough for third. Walker's last because he's too narrow. The side triceps is a good shot for everyone, but a great shot for no one. Excepting maybe Brandon Curry, who once again looks strong from the side. Big Ramy, for his part, thankfully seems to have figured it out finally. I can't recall if it was last year or in 2020 where he was struggling to hold it, but here he looks much more natural and composed. But that said, he's not dominant in it by any means. I'd take Nick Walker over him, easily. Brandon, likewise, is presenting better. Hadi and Derek both look a little thin from the side, it has to be said. It is one of Samson's stronger shots, though, but I still feel like he needs better separation to really slam it home. The ab and thigh is once again Hadi all day. The best midsection in the lineup, no questions asked. Couple that with a good set of quads, and it's a tough combo to beat. Big Ramy's looking a bit too chunky here for my tastes. For a mass monster of his stature, this is still a pretty good midsection, but his waistline has definitely thickened over the years. And other than the gargantuan quads, I'm not a fan. Nick is showing some solid definition with those thick, brick-like abdominals, but is too blocky and that ruins his flow. Derek's abs are kind of murky and Brandon's legs aren't up to par, so I would probably put Samson Dauda in second here. If he was just a bit crisper, he could be outright winning it because size-wise, he's dwarfing the Iranian. Alright, so now they swap out Curry for Lunsford and bump Ramy to the outside, where, shockingly, he would remain for the rest of the call-out. I actually don't know what to make of this, and even Phil Heath and the other commentators seemed kind of taken aback, wondering if that indicated that the judges had Ramy as the clear-cut winner, and therefore didn't really need to compare him much anymore. I don't think so. Generally speaking, when it comes to judging bodybuilding contests, it's the guys in the center who are the ones placing the highest. So it's usually not a good sign when they move you to the outside like that. But it would be downright shocking to see Ramy fall to 5th or 6th. Imagine the two-time reigning champion not only failing to win, but failing to crack the top 3? When was the last time that ever happened? If I recall correctly, it's been literally decades, man. Samir Banu in 84 comes to mind, but not sure aside from that. Anyway, they put him through the rounds again, but we don't need to rejudge all of that. I do want to revisit a couple poses, though, where Ramy didn't get a flattering look earlier. So right here, you can see that when he really opens up, Big Ramy could be winning this. His width across the shoulders is second to none, and he's filling it out through the lats admirably. And the lower half goes without saying, of course. But when he crunches down, I feel this looks too casual. Almost like he's standing semi-relaxed. Yes, the abs are nicely flexed and he looks polished, but the lat width kind of disappears. Not a good thing in a lat spread, if you get where I'm coming from. Overall, then, this could go to either Ramy or Hadi. It depends on what version Ramy's doing, in my opinion. And here we go again in the side chest. This time, Ramy turns farther so we can appreciate the upper body more. That chest is immensely thick, but the arms still look too thin. I'm actually liking Samson more now. He seemed to have really improved from the last round and is even pushing Curry here. Hadi also looks better than before, so I don't know, guys. This one is super tight and can practically go any which way. The rest of my calls remain unchanged, so let's just skip ahead to the most muscular. Okay, so Ramy in the hands on hip is structurally gigantic, but pretty sure he's looked sharper in the past. Not much separation there between the shoulders and pecs, and the slowly widening waistline isn't doing him any favors. I thought Hadi looked a little weak here. Great conditioning, sure, but the lack of triceps hurts him badly. The arms look too stringy. Samson goes beast mode in this hands clasped, but unwisely, he only holds it for like half a second. I would have liked to seen him maintain that for a solid 3 to 5 seconds, and also dial it in a little more through the abs and legs. Then he would be virtually unstoppable. Nick is big and freaky, but the physique, like I said before, it just doesn't flow very well. The midsection is simply too thick. I'm sorry. Brandon carves an amazing outline, but honestly, it looks like he's guest posing. In 2019, after he won, Dorian Yates claimed that he looked 6 weeks out, which I thought was a little harsh at the time. But then, what does that make this? 2 months out? Middle of off-season? Like, seriously, if Brandon ends up in the top 3, the judges are smoking crack. Samson in the crab is super impressive. This guy, look, maybe I've been a bit too hard on him because he doesn't exactly crush any single pose, but man, is he ever consistent. He doesn't have a bad pose, or a bad body part for that matter. He definitely belongs up here among the best of the best. Curry in the crab, though, is pretty menacing, I gotta admit. And finally, his physique starts to come to life a bit with some striations emerging in the chest. You could maybe even give him the most muscular based on this shot, but it's too little, too late. Okay, so that's just about going to do it for this one. I really wish they would have trimmed it down to a top 3 or 4 so we could get a closer look and make out those finer details more. I'm not a fan of large call-out groups because there's too much happening at once and some of the conditioning gets lost. Even in terms of the timing of the poses, it's hard to get a freeze frame where they're all flexing, 100% at the same moment. And like I said earlier, I truly have no idea what to make of this and where the judges were going with relegating Ramy to the outside like that. Is this just a ploy to build suspense and keep us guessing? Or do they really have the current champ fighting for 5th? Here's my personal assessment. I think Hadi should be leading here after prejudging. True, he has his weak points, but he was easily among the most conditioned, if not the most conditioned guy in this top 6, without sacrificing much size at all. And more importantly, he outright won more poses than anyone else. The ab and thigh and rear lat spread both went to him pretty conclusively in my estimation, and he was in the running, or at least respectable in everything else. Conversely, guys like Nick Walker and Big Ramy both had a couple of lousy poses. Derek still needs another year or 2 to pack on more weight and really catch up to these mass monsters. And Samson and especially Brandon were both lagging behind in terms of separation. Therefore, yes, I have the former People's Champ becoming the new overall champ in 2022. At least so long as nothing changes drastically and the judges can leave any politics at the door and be objective. After that, I have no idea. It's anyone's guess. Could be Ramy, could be Derek, could even be Nick if they're willing to overlook some of the structural deficiencies there. I can't imagine it could be Samson or Brandon, but who knows? Anything is possible. I have no idea. With the flip-floppy direction the judges have been going lately from one contest to the next, it's tough to say. So, there you have it. I'll leave it to you guys to discuss further in the comments, and I think it's safe to say we're all excited to see how this thing ends up tonight in the deepest Mr. Olympia lineup in living memory. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more in-depth analysis like this. This has been the Tominator signing out, and I'll be back.